What's up, y'all? Welcome back to a brand new video. In this one, I'm going to be counting down from 70 down to 1, ranking the 70 new movies that I saw in 2024. Now, these were movies that were released in 2024 or got their wide release in 2024. I think there's 3 or 4 movies on here that technically, if you look them up, they'll say they're 2023 films. That's because they were released at like festivals, different things like that, but they didn't get their wide theatrical or streaming release until 2024. And so I counted some of those movies as well. I just want to make this clear. This is based on my enjoyment of the film, not the quality of the film, not how good I think the film is, not how many awards I think the film will win, my enjoyment. That's it. So there are going to be some movies here that'll probably do well during awards season, win some awards, maybe have high Rotten Tomatoes score or whatever it is that you value, but they're going to be low for me because I just didn't enjoy watching them. However, I can still appreciate that they're good films and I understand why people like them. That just means they're not for me. So it's not based on quality, it's based on my enjoyment. Some movies are going to get a good length little blurb here. Some of them are going to get a sentence or two just because it's 70 movies and I don't want this video to be stupidly long. So we're just going to get rolling here with number 70, Irish Wish, a comedy movie, a rom-com starring Lindsay Lohan playing a woman torn between 2 men in Ireland. But not a single person in the cast is Irish, which just feels like such a weird mistake to me, especially when there's so many solid actors out there right now, which makes me think that they all must have passed on it. You should pass on this movie. Number 70, Irish Wish. Next up at number 69, nice, is Meet Me Next Christmas. This movie was so bad, so I watched it with my wife. It's a Christmas rom-com, and Pentatonix is featured heavily, both as like they are like as characters, and then like the plot plateaus at a Pentatonix concert. It was so bad that my wife, she told me she got the ick from Pentatonix, or the Pentaton ick. She didn't say that, I did, and she wouldn't let me credit that to her, but it was me, the Pentatonic. Put a trademark on that. So she wouldn't even listen to their music anymore after this. The protagonist was not very likable at all. Meet Me Next Christmas, number 69. Yes, you can eat. Yes, you can eat. She's asking me if she can sit right there behind the camera with her little glass of champagne. It's New Year's Day, and enjoy some snacks. And I told her yes, she can. That's while she reads. She's gonna read it. You're not gonna sit there and watch me do this whole thing because she has a real hobby, not movies. Wow. Okay. Well, I bet you didn't watch 453 books this year.
No, I'm a mother.
She said, "No, I'm a mother." That is so fair. Wow. Okay. I have a lot of soul searching to do. Now, number 68 is Holiday Touchdown, A Chief's Love Story. It's a Hallmark movie. What can you expect? That's all I got for you. But I'll say for a Hallmark movie, it was a fairly original premise introducing the whole football aspect, but you could tell that they don't know anything about football. Number 67 is Mean Girls, the 2024 musical remake. Do not watch this film. Number 66, I Saw the TV Glow. This is one of those ones, I just didn't get it. I know a lot of people liked it. I watched it, made 0 sense to me. Like, I followed the plot, I understood what was happening, but it felt like it was trying to do too much, and it was trying to be deep. Finally, it's described as a horror movie, which is my least favorite genre, but if I'm going to watch a horror movie, I want it to be a horror movie, and it didn't even feel like a horror movie. It was just like a psychological movie, but didn't like it. Not good. Number 65 is Argyle. Gosh, this movie sucked. It was absolute cheeks, which for you old folks, I'm talking about butt cheeks. That's not a good thing. Sometimes it is, but not in this context. Every part of it was cringy. It didn't make much sense. The plot twist at the end that this character that she apparently made up based on her own memories, but that's actually a real person. And I hate that it's tied to the Kingsman movies because the Kingsman movies are so solid, so good, and Argyle is garbo. Yeah, especially the one scene where she's like ice skating. That was really bad. No, I'm good on this. Number 64, Our Little Secret. Lindsay Lohan just isn't doing a very good job at this stage in her career. I really respect her comeback. I like that she's getting roles, but here's hoping that the new Freaky Friday is at least okay, because her movies here are ranked at number 70, number 64, and she had a cameo in Mean Girls, so number 67, and that's just not good. Next up at number 63 is Damsel. This was a Netflix release, described as a dark fantasy movie. They changed up the princess damsel in distress format, starring Millie Bobby Brown as the protagonist. Other than that, this movie was just completely forgettable. So 63, Damsel. Next up at number 62 is the film Summer Camp, which features 3 women, I believe, who are supposed to be in their 70s that are going back to their summer camp reunion, starring Kathy Bates and Diane Keaton and Alfred Woodard. I don't even know how or why I saw this movie. It wasn't popular. It wasn't very good, but I watched it, and here it is on this list at number 62. Next up at number 61 is Kinds of Kindness. This one will probably make some people mad that it's this low. Yorgos Lanthimos films just are too weird for me. I think I've only seen this and Poor Things. I didn't like Poor Things either. I don't get them. I don't enjoy them. I could get the appeal, but it's just not for me. Now at number 60, Hot Frosty. How do you change up the Christmas rom-com format? You make the guy a snowman that came to life. Brilliant? No, but good effort. Now at number 59, we have Spaceman, which makes me sad that I'm having to put it this low because I appreciate Adam Sandler I appreciate Adam Sandler in general. I think he's a very funny actor, and I appreciate him trying to be serious here, trying to make this movie. But I think this movie really would have benefited from him being funnier in it and kind of just being a little more the classic Adam Sandler you expect. It would have benefited from a few jokes. I appreciate the premise because the premise was very similar to Project Hail Mary, which is a book that I read this year that came out a few years back by Andy Weir, the author of The Martian, and it has a movie coming out in 2026 starring Ryan Gosling that I think will just be this movie except like way better. At 58, we have Emilia Perez. So I understand why this movie is receiving praise. I get what they were going for. I know this will probably be a Best Picture nominee. Some people think it might be the most Oscar-nominated movie. I think that's silly. I think it should be Dune Part 2. But this movie just didn't work for me. It felt like a very strange plot to be a musical. I think the plot, they did something admirable. I respect what they were trying to do with the plot. Didn't need to be a musical. The performances weren't really good. I have seen a lot of people in the Latin community kind of upset with some of the performances and the portrayal, maybe the stereotyping of the performances. And the performances, they honestly weren't very good, if I'm being completely honest. I know there's getting some nominations, but especially, Zoe Saldana and Selena Gomez. I don't think they were those actresses' best performances. So next up at number 57, we have The Merry Gentleman. A step above the typical Hallmark Christmas one. This one stood up a little bit due to what is somewhat an interesting premise. Also, Chad Michael Murray is very handsome, so good for him. This one is one that's going to be forgotten, though. Number 56, we have Horizon: An American Saga Chapter 1, what was meant to be the first of a 4-part epic series of westerns from Kevin Costner. We'll see the status on those other ones. The second one was supposed to come out this year as well. Did not, because this one heavily underperformed. And the reason is just because it wasn't very good. It was way too long with a 181-minute runtime, 3 hours long, and really not much happened. It was just a bunch of setup. There was no payoff. There was no conclusion. And then it ends with like a trailer that's like, next time on, like a show. It felt like a way too long plot of a show that would come out on like the History Channel and not be watched by a bunch of people, which is disappointing for me because I like Kevin Costner's films usually. He usually knows how to make a Western, but this one just wasn't working. But I appreciate that it was his passion project. I do want to shout out, I think I put this in my review of it, which this is a good plug right here. I have a blog, Showtime with Shane. It'll be linked down below. If you're curious for anything on the rest of these movies, majority of them, not all of them, majority of them I have done full reviews on the blog. And if you want to scroll back, you can find most of them. The very first one will be Dune Part 2, because I started the blog earlier this year, and you should be able to find them for the rest, though, for most of them. But I think I put this in there. The performance of Hayes Costner, Kevin Costner's son, is very good, so I want to give him credit, but everything else in this movie was just not good. At number 55, we have Sasquatch Sunset. This movie was strange, but it was very original. They did a good job with a weird premise. The makeup was fantastic, so good. And it managed to hold my attention fairly well considering there was no dialogue whatsoever. However, it was just a little too out there, I think, and so it's going to land here at 55. At number 54, we have A Family Affair, where Nicole Kidman and Zac Efron fall in love. Yep. So the two have some decent chemistry. The movie was all right. I think the more I watched it, the worse the movie got, like the less good it was. And I'm not a very big fan of Joey King, so that doesn't help. Destiny just said Joey King ruins every movie other than Ramona and Beezus. So I'm not a big fan of her, so that doesn't help. I think sometimes Destiny talks behind the camera and forgets that since she doesn't have a microphone, you guys can't hear what she's saying. But I'll just repeat it, unless she says something inappropriate, which she often does. She's exactly. She's saying all kinds of inappropriate stuff right now. She's not. I'm kidding. All right. At number 53, we have Knox Goes Away. I believe this is that first film that fits into the mold that I said of films that actually debuted in 2023 but got wide releases until 2024. It was directed, produced by, and starring Michael Keaton as a man who received a rapid dementia diagnosis and has to settle his affairs from his life as a hitman. Overall, it was okay. Next is Brothers, which is a Thanksgiving film starring Josh Brolin as Peter Dinklage as a set of law-breaking twins. Just like the surrounding movies, this one was fine. Wasn't bad, but it wasn't memorable. It felt a little hastily thrown together narratively, and so it lands here at 52. Next up at 51, we have Nutcracker, which is Ben Stiller's first starring role in 6 years. He returned to his usual form in what was a solid outing in an okay Christmas movie. I actually did quite enjoy the performances of the four real-life Jansen brothers as the Kicklighter brothers in the movie, and although it was a decent film, some of the jokes and whatnot fell a little flat for me, though the climax performance of the Nutcracker was fun. So. Number 50, we have Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, the fifth film in the Legendary Pictures Monsterverse. This film is definitely the weakest entry of the franchise thus far. I was pretty disappointed with it. I'm not sure what their thought process on this one was. The monsters are the cool parts of this movie that just show them more. They should have been featured so much more heavily than they were. All the shots of Godzilla, of him sleeping in the Coliseum and everything like that were awesome, but it just wasn't featured enough. Scar King was a cool character with a cool premise that goes along with Kong. I just don't know why they didn't feature that more. The human characters that were featured way too much, they weren't as interesting as human characters from the past movies. So number 49, we have Young Woman in the Sea, which follows the true story of Gertrude Ederle, starring Daisy Ridley as the Olympic champion. And although it was a little slow and boring, overall it was a good watch, and it was informative. It taught me about a legendary athlete that I had never heard of. So, number 48, we have Jackpot. So I think this is the first movie I've watched where Awkwafina is the main character and not the quirky sidekick. And I do think she was actually a very good lead, with John Cena actually playing the role of the fun sidekick. A very cool premise that was never going to be anything more than a middle-of-the-pack movie. Yeah. Number 47, we have Boy Kills World, a 2023 release again with a wide release in 2024. This movie was original, and parts of it were memorable. Otherwise, it was just okay. Compared to other action movies I watched this year, it just didn't really hold up, though again, it was original. At number 46, we have Ricky Stenicki. Yes, John Cena again, though this isn't very high on the list. It was better than I thought it would be, though it was not good. But it was kind of funny, a little memorable, and as John Cena, which is always a plus in my books. Now, at number 45, we have Wolves. I actually was pretty disappointed by this movie, starring Brad Pitt and George Clooney. I was expecting something at least a little more similar maybe to Ocean's 11, though I'd never expected it to be as good, but I really don't even remember the plot at all. It was just kind of uninteresting and fell very flat for me. At number 44, we have Alien Romulus. And so I know that feels low for this, but I honestly don't even really like the original Alien film that much. I understand the praise and why it is considered so good. It's just I don't really enjoy watching it. And I think this movie was like just pretty much the same thing. It was so similar to the original. The ensemble did a great job. The effects were very well done, especially of the offspring at the very end. Um, and then I want to specifically shout out David Johnson's role. He did a great job, and I enjoyed his role. Now, at number 43, we have Roadhouse, a remake of the Patrick Swayze film. This film centers on Jake Gyllenhaal's character, who is a disgraced ex UFC fighter who gets a job as a bouncer. It also features Conor McGregor in his film debut. It's just another one that was okay. Because we're kind of at that point in the list where all the movies are just like, I kind of tell you what they're about, and then I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Because that's just kind of where we are. We're kind of getting towards the middle, and I'd say there's going to be some after this. I just don't have a ton to say because I watched it and didn't have many takeaways from them. So at number 42, we have The Bike Riders. Again, technically a 2023 release before the wide release in 24. I thought this movie would be like an Oscar Darling type movie, but it fell a little flat for me. I liked the narrative storytelling from Jodie Comer's character of someone looking back on the past. The performances were all decent. None of them were great, but they were all decent. Specifically, Tom Hardy's was the bright spot for me. Now, at 41, we have The Piano Lesson. I had absolutely no idea this was a horror movie when I started it. In fact, I actually didn't even realize it until about halfway through. The pacing was erratic. It made it really hard for me to get fully invested in the movie, but the performances and character dynamics were interesting, especially from John David Washington, Samuel L. Jackson, and Danielle Deadwyler. It also felt very much like a play, and it's based on a play, but it felt very much like a play. That's not a good or bad thing, just a statement. Now at number 40, we have The Beekeeper. Jason Statham and his agent are great at picking movies for him, and I think the way they do it is the main character of this movie, Jason Statham, doing a different job? Yep, let's cast Jason Statham. So making him a mercenary that's also a beekeeper, it worked. I dig it. It's just a fun action movie that does exactly what you need it to. I mean, it's not great. It's probably won't be remembered for very much, but it was a solid movie. I enjoyed Josh Hutcherson in it as well as a douchey tech bro. Now, number 39, we have Civil War. I was actually a little disappointed in this film because I thought it was just going to exceed all my expectations to be a brilliant movie, and it was fine. The performances were all decent. They were all okay. I liked Haley Spaney in it a lot. I really think Jesse Plemons' cameo should have been featured more. Like, it should have been a full character more because he was honestly the most compelling part of the movie for me. So for what I thought was a really good concept, a lot of potential, fell a little flat, but it was still an alright movie. Now, number 38, we have Arthur the King. It's a good movie in the subgenre of dog movies. That's not an actual subgenre of movies, but I think you get what I'm saying. Perhaps the only thing more emotional than a sweet dog in a movie is a sweet stray dog in a movie. And spoilers here if you care about this, so skip to the next timestamp. But I was actually talking to my father-in-law about this movie, and I said, well, I know it's gonna be sad because obviously the dog is gonna die, and he was like, no way. Mark Wahlberg, he wants everyone to leave feeling good. He's all about the motivation, so that dog's gonna make it through the movie. And well, he was right. The dog did make it through the movie, so that's always fun that the dog didn't die because I don't want to cry. Now, at number 37, we have Unfrosted, a Pop-Tart story. This film is kind of making fun of like all the other movies that are like about the creation of different things that have been coming out recently. It's a fictional account of the creation of the Pop-Tarts, very much played into the humor. The film stars some comedic giants and does land some actually really funny jokes and bits delivered by the likes of Jerry Seinfeld, who actually wrote, produced, directed, and was the star. And it also featured Melissa McCarthy, Jim Gaffigan, Amy Schumer, Max Greenfield, and in what I think was the funniest performance in the film, Hugh Grant as Tony the Tiger. There are also a huge number of cameos as well from like Peter Dinklage, Bill Burr, Dan Levy, James Marsden, a lot of other recognizable names. It's a little silly and dumb, but it's intentionally silly and dumb, so I'll give it that. Now, number 36, we have Red One. This movie wasn't awful, which is better than I think most people would say it was. It was fun. It had some cool moments, some cool characters. It's one that I may revisit every few years on Christmas. And while it's not going to win any awards, again, it's fun. It's a movie featuring The Rock. So there's only so much, like, it feels like a movie that would feature The Rock. And I don't mean that as a diss. I enjoy The Rock. I enjoy most of his movies. I just watched Black Adam the other day. Didn't enjoy that. It was bad. But Red One was good. It was okay. How about that? 35. Oh, we're halfway there with A Quiet Place Day One. So a prequel slash spin-off to the other Quiet Place movies. The main highlight of this film was the chemistry between Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn, which you can actually see in a lot of their, interviews together. Overall, though, I think this movie was slightly forgettable. It wasn't the most exciting watch, and I'm not sure, maybe the family dynamic is what was missing from what made the first movie so good. I actually haven't seen the second one. Now at 34, we have Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, I won't say it a third time. No, it's not my favorite style of movie. I don't love the dark fantasy genre. And I also am not a big fan of Tim Burton's movies, but it was good. I think I enjoyed it just as much as the first one. So if you love the first one, I'm sure you'd love this. Maybe not. You'd have to let me know. I thought Michael Keaton was very funny, which, of course, he very easily slipped back into this role in these shoes that he left decades ago. So good for him. Now at 33, we have That Christmas. I had absolutely no expectations for this movie, but it was honestly very solid. It's a sweet Christmas story that's a good watch with the kiddos. Animated movie. It has a very British vibe to it, which is, that's cool, I guess. British. And I don't mean that it's flavorless and has bad teeth. It just is very British. Now, the voice cast did a good job. It was a good assortment of characters so that everyone can find a character to latch onto. So, sorry for the jab at the British people. Now at number 32, we have Thelma. This film, on the other hand, it was a pretty good watch. It was fun. It was enjoyable. It felt like I was watching like my own grandma go on this journey, like the grandmother character. June Squibb was very fun in the role, and I enjoyed Fred Heckinger's role as her grandson. It's just a solid movie with good gags and surprisingly heavy emotions. Yes, I changed clothes because this is like 3 days later. But I'm continuing here with number 31, which is Rebel Ridge. This movie was pretty awesome. It was very grounded for an action film. The action felt very realistic. Aaron Pierre, I admit I didn't know who he was before this, but now I am on notice. He put me on notice with this film. His character seemed like he could be a real person, which really works in favor of the film. He definitely is a very bad dude, and definitely has some skills that the normal person wouldn't have. But it's like he still felt like this real guy that's just like this real guy with real attainable skills if he worked hard for him. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the invincible, untouchable action heroes like a John Wick or something. But it's nice for the guys to sometimes just be a guy, and it's grounded. He can take a hit, and he will. So, Rebel Ridge. And at number 30, I have Erez Ball. Now, the only reason I heard about this movie is because one of its producers is LeBron James, who I'm a big fan of. But I never saw anything else about this film from anyone. If you enjoy sports movies or coming-of-age movies, I would highly recommend watching this film. The performances were all great from actors, most of whom I had never heard of prior to watching it. It was very heavy with emotions, and it starts off very heavy, but it delivers a really feel-good underdog story. Also, I didn't even have this in my notes, but I just want to say this. What can make or break a sports movie, especially a basketball movie sometimes, because those are my go-to sports movies because I love basketball, is how good the basketball scenes are. This movie has really, really good basketball scenes. Like, it looks like it's like real, actual basketball players playing. So, credits to it for that. Number 29, we have Kung Fu Panda 4. So I like this movie and what it did for the franchise. The first 3 films all had villains who were ominous for different reasons. And so that's just like, now it's just all of them combined. Viola Davis is a welcome addition to any cast. I think Awkwafina, I know some people are overexposed to her and getting a little tired of her, but I think her voice really lends itself well to a film like this. My 2 qualms with this movie stem from, one, I think it was the lack of the Furious 5. Come on, you got to have them in there. And then also, I wish that Ke Huy Quan's character would have had a bigger role, just because I love him. He has a movie that he's the main character in coming up this year, in like a month or so. I'm super excited about it because I would have loved a bigger role for him. Number 28, we have It Ends With Us. Now, this is one my wife was extremely excited for, and I was excited to watch it with her. Now, unfortunately for the film itself, this is one that's always going to be talked about for whatever drama may or may not have happened. He said, she said, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on that has happened behind the scenes. But I really don't want to take that to take away from the film. It's a solid romance film. It touches on the film itself touches on an intense, touchy subject without making the viewer uncomfortable. Like, it makes you uncomfortable because it's like, wow, this happens to people in real life, but it doesn't make you uncomfortable in the sense that you can't watch the movie anymore. At least I personally feel that way. I think the performances were solid. They were just really cheesy, which is kind of what you expect from a film like this. I'll say behind the scenes, I hope whoever's in the wrong is held accountable for their actions, but it's never a good sign when the stuff behind the scenes overshadows the movie, which this one did. Next at 27, we have Challengers. This movie was kind of odd. I totally understand the hype. I think it's an incredibly well-made film, specifically the performances, the editing, the score, and the cinematography. Oh my gosh, the cinematography was wonderful. The tennis scenes, and especially in the final match, are great. I think the dynamics of the movie were very intriguing, and I think this is a movie that will age really well. Now, Nosferatu at 26. This movie was like, when I went and saw it, I didn't realize that it was going to be like so erotic. I'm not typically into horror, but this movie really intrigued me. I had heard great things. I had seen the original Nosferatu in a film studies class. I'll say the pacing was a little all over the place, which I know that's kind of par for the course sometimes in horror, but that was a little hard for me. The cinematography was awesome. It very much reminded me of The Lighthouse, another Robert Eggers film. The performances were all very good. Every actor brought it. Nicholas Hoult, Ralph Ineson, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emma Corrin, especially Lily Rose Depp, Willem Dafoe. It was perfect for a movie like this. And man, Bill Skarsgård was so scary and deserves so much praise for this film. Now, number 25, we have The Idea of You. Now, this movie really exceeded my pretty much non-existent expectations, and this was like a good time to remind you real quick, because I know I have movies like Nosferatu, Challengers, even Rebel Ridge, like below this movie. I think all of those are exponentially better films than this. I just really enjoyed watching this movie. Now, anyways, Anne Hathaway, she steps into a new kind of role for her. She absolutely crushed it. Nicholas Galitzine was incredibly charming. I can't wait to see more from him. I know he was cast in the upcoming Masters of the Universe as He-Man, so that'll be interesting. I unironically added a couple of the songs from this movie to my playlists because they were like genuinely bops. But this was a fun, good movie that like was way better than I thought it would ever be. Now at number 24, we have The Instigators. I just need to say this up front. I'm a sucker for anything with Matt Damon. Here he teams up with his second favorite Affleck brother for a pretty solid entry. Though it's not a film that's going to be super memorable for years to come, it provides an enjoyable watch with Hong Chow, Paul Walter Hauser, Michael Stuhlbarg, Ving Rhames, Alfred Molina, Toby Jones, Jack Harlow, and Ron Perlman providing supporting roles. Yes, Jack Harlow, and he was actually pretty funny in it. Also, the two decided to change up the setting of this one. It actually takes place, you would never guess this, it takes place in Boston, of all places, which is really weird for them. But jokes aside, this is a solid movie. 23, we have Despicable Me 4. So of the 4 Despicable Me films, not counting the 2 Minion movies, this is the second best, I think, behind the first one. The voice cast is stacked like this. Like these films always are, but this one was so stacked. I loved Will Ferrell, did a great job. These films also do a great job of taking a few different storylines and stringing them all together really well, which stands true in this movie. Also, shout out to Pharrell for just putting out another banger of a song for no reason, because he just loves Despicable Me, I guess. I don't know. Now at 22, we have Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. So I'm really not a huge fan of the Mad Max films. Other ones I've seen are the original and Fury Road. Didn't like either of them, I'll just be honest. Of the ones I've seen, this is my favorite, mostly due to the performances put on by Anya Taylor-Joy and Lila Brown as Furiosa. Both the adult and younger versions of Furiosa, brilliant. Chris Hemsworth gives us one of the year's best villains, hands down, in Dementis, which is one of his most unique roles to date. Sorry, I have hiccups. The film is very, very visually appealing, and it sets a great prequel for one of the franchise's breakout characters. So, Now at 21, we have Trap, a psychological thriller from the very confusing mind that is M. Night Shyamalan. This film does feature a very solid performance from Josh Hartnett, as well as good supporting jobs from a lot of lesser-known actors. The film doesn't feature a genre-bending twist like most of his movies do, but it still jerks you around nonetheless, especially in the third act, and it results in a memorable, though original film. Or a memorable and original, not though. Number 20, we have Juror Number 2, a very solid courtroom legal drama. I enjoyed this film. I really appreciated Nicholas Holt's performances. He's just on a tear right now. I also really liked the appearance of J.K. Simmons. I wish he would have been featured a little more heavily than he was, because he's like one of the best actors working right now. And while the story was super compelling, the pacing was a little slow, and I feel like there was not a huge payoff at the end. The ending, I feel like, was maybe a little disappointing. And like I said, the plot intrigued me, but I think they could have made it maybe a little more mystery around it, but whatever. Great execution, though, from Clint Eastwood, one of the all-time great filmmakers. So, number 19, we have from the desk of John Krasinski is If. This movie is like a great love letter from a father to his kids. And watching this movie as a dad now, like, I think I enjoyed it probably a lot more than someone who doesn't have kids, or I don't know. Maybe I think a parent would enjoy this movie a little more than someone without kids, just because it very much feels like a love letter, like I said, from a father to his kids or a mother to her kids. Both John Krasinski and the young actress Kaylee Fleming that played the main character B, they give very effective emotional performances. Each and every imaginary friend is designed so well. They're very well executed on the effects side. It combines a few different styles really well. It's just a very sweet movie that has a good blend of the live action and animation. Speaking of live action and animation, at 18 we have Sonic the Hedgehog 3. These Sonic movies are just so much fun. I really love the formula they use of just like, it's the same movie, but they up the stakes and they add a couple new characters into the fray. It's worked really well, and I think it will continue to. They continue to build on each other. I think the first one was good. The second one was better. The third one has been the best so far. All four of the actors who voiced the CGI characters, Ben Schwartz, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, Idris Elba, and Keanu Reeves, they all do a great job in capturing their characters. Jim Carrey is so perfectly over the top in the role of Dr. Robotnik, or roles, I guess, of Drs. Robotnik, because he played two in this movie. It's a good, fun film. Also, it's funny how much Jim Carrey loves being in these movies, but yeah. Now at number 17, we have Dee Dee. This film is the directorial debut of Sean Wang, and he really, really made a name for himself here for people that saw this movie, which I don't think a ton of people did. So if you didn't, you should go watch it. I think I watched it on Peacock, but it's really good. It's almost an entirely unknown newcomer cast. There are a couple more veteran actors in there, but mostly newcomers. The film is relatable for anyone that's ever been a teenager. So all of us, unless you're like 12 or younger, I guess, which I don't know how you found this video, but weird. While I'm sure it's even more relatable for Asian Americans and maybe other minority groups, I won't necessarily touch on that because clearly I'm not. But I will say it's really cool being able to see a film with such great representation, but it's not like, I didn't think, again, saying this as a white dude, I didn't think it was like over the top, and it didn't seem like a character. It's like, yes, he was an Asian kid, but it was just a story about a kid who happened to be Asian. So that's cool. It's nostalgic, emotional, absolutely worth a watch. Now, number 16, we have Conclave, a mystery thriller focused on the death of a pope, which sounded so boring to me, but I decided to give it a chance. It's the process to name his successor, the next pope, and the film was actually quite good. Not as boring as I thought it would be, like I said. Wonderful performances from a veteran cast, including Ralph Fiennes, John Lithgow, Isabella Rossellini, Stanley Tucci, and the film has a very solid twist ending, and I expect its name is going to be mentioned frequently here during I guess awards season's already started a while ago because the Golden Globes were a couple days ago. Well, I guess when you're watching this, they were probably like over a week ago. But the Oscars are coming up. That's what I consider awards season, and I'm sure Conclave will be in the running there. Number 15, we have Blitz, which is both a very solid war movie and a very solid film about a relationship between a mother and a son. Saoirse Ronan, she is just great as always. She is such an underappreciated actress. I know she has like 4 Oscar nominations, and she's like I think younger than 30, but she's so underappreciated because it's like she's good in everything. So you just always expect her to be good, and so I feel like she kind of goes flies under the radar sometime. The young Elliot Heffernan, who played the main character of George, he gave a great performance. Wow. This felt like an adventure film, with George trying to get back to his mother. The ending was fulfilling, but still very tragic. Feels realistic for a movie set in World War II. So now at number 14, we have Monkey Man, another sleeper film of 2024. This film from the mind of Dev Patel. It stars Patel. He also directed, produced, and wrote it. He's an unnamed protagonist known as the boy, Monkey Man, who seeks vengeance on figures from his past. The film touches on so many different areas, but they all feel so developed. It solidified Dev Patel as both an action star and a filmmaker. And if you weren't able to see this film and you're a fan of action films, I would definitely recommend it. This is not my review, but I've seen a ton of people saying that it feels very much like the John Wick movies, but with like a Bollywood type style. I don't know if they're just saying that because the cast is Indian. I don't know what that means. Again, that's not my review, but that's a lot of the reviews I've seen. At number 13, we have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Though this film doesn't quite capture just what made the prior trilogy so good for Matt Reeves, this film is still really good. The effects, golly, they're just jaw-dropping. It introduces many, many new characters whose stories I can't wait to see unfold even more as the rest of, I believe this is a trilogy. I love a film like this that it's a big blockbuster movie, but it really doesn't have any superstar actors attached. No offense to anyone on the cast, with William H. Macy being the most notable name. Who, like, no offense to him, but he's not like this bring in the tickets name, bring in the money. But Proximus Caesar, played by Kevin Durand, is one of the best villains again to come out of 2024, just like I said about Chris Hemsworth, Dementus. Noah, played by Owen Teague, has so much potential as a protagonist, and I'm excited to see where the story goes. Now, number 12, we have Inside Out 2. Now, I understand people's frustrations with constant sequels, prequels, spin-offs, remakes, whatever else. But you watch a sequel this good, which I'd say is almost as good as the first one, it really fires you up. And it's like, yeah, I understand why they do this. Almost a decade later, it doesn't miss a step from where from what made the first film thrive. All the new emotions are great additions to the cast of characters. Obviously, a lot of people agreed that this is a good movie, and also it's a kid's movie, so that helps because it was the highest grossing movie of the year. It's a relatable coming-of-age filmy and has that that oomph. I don't know why I said it 3 times. That most Pixar movies have that makes you feel all the emotions. No pun intended. At number 11, we have The Fall Guy. Ryan Gosling's follow-up to his Oscar-nominated performance in Barbie. It did not disappoint. He came in, played a very funny protagonist, has wonderful chemistry with the rest of the star-studded cast, which of course includes Emily Blunt, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Hannah Waddingham, Stephanie Hsu, and Winston Duke. I think the main praise that I give to this movie is it put the often unsung heroes that are stunt people in the spotlight. And while the film did underperform at the box office, I think it's going to go down as a cult classic type popular movie. And the stunts really were really, really good. So praise to The Fall Guy, number 11. Now, at number 10, we have Transformers 1, my highest ranked animated movie of the year. What I would confidently say is the best Transformer movie I've seen. This film is an animated masterpiece, features great voice work from a slew of A-list names. You got Chris Hemsworth, Brian Tyree Henry, who was great, Scarlett Johansson, Steve Buscemi, John Hamm, Keegan-Michael Key. The friendship that we see, I think Lawrence Fishburne was also in it. The friendship of Megatron, Optimus Prime that slowly dissolves, and the introduction of other well-known characters like Bumblebee and Starscream, it just pays off really well, and it's a great film. At number 9, we have the best Christmas pageant ever. I don't think any other movie made me feel more than this one this year. It had me cracking up. It had me excited for Christmas. It had me feeling nostalgic for childhood, and it had me straight up crying, sobbing, and it is significantly better than any other Christian faith-based movie that I've seen. The performances, specifically from the child actors, were very good, and I would tell you this if you were watching this and you're like, oh, Christian movie is so cringy. You know what? As a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, I would totally agree with you. They usually are. This one was not, and it also didn't feel like it was trying to shove it down your throat. It's just like the undertones of it. Just a very good movie, and this is one that will be a rewatch every Christmas season for me going forward. So. Number 8, we have Snack Shack. Definitely one of the most unknown films on this list. I would highly recommend you go watch this film. It hits on every note. The performances, specifically from Connor Sherry and the now Golden Globe nominated, not for this movie, Gabriel LaBelle, are both really good. I think LaBelle is one of those actors that's going to be a household name probably in a decade or so. The friendship the two have, it's realistic, it's emotional. I feel like every part throughout the film feels incredibly relatable, and it's just a really good movie. Really fun movie, really emotional movie. Go watch it. Number 7, Deadpool and Wolverine, what is now the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. This movie is a great tie-in both to the X-Men and the MCU series of films. I came out of it disappointed that it didn't tie more into the MCU, but that's me setting my own expectations for it, and I am really excited to see how it ties into the greater MCU and see how they approach that. But I appreciate how it sent off this Fox universe with grace. But speaking on this film specifically, this is the role in which Ryan Reynolds excels. I quite like Ryan Reynolds. I really think this is maybe the only role that he's good in. Hugh Jackman, always great. I loved Sean Levy's direction that he took for the film. The appearances were very good without being overwhelming and needless. They each played an important role. Love that. So shout out to the rest of that ensemble. So there we go. Deadpool and Wolverine is 7. Number 6, we have Carry On, which is the spiritual successor. I've said this so many times, I'm getting played out. The spiritual successor of the greatest action movie of all time, Die Hard, also one of the best Christmas movies of all time. Carry On stars Taron Egerton as a TSA agent who gets wrapped up in this mysterious scheme. The movie has all the ingredients a good action movie needs. Good protagonist, good villain, good action. Boom. Solid plot line with a complex but not convoluted plan. The movie was great. It has a couple of those things that only action movies can pull off where it's like, well, does that really make sense? Nope, doesn't matter. Fun movie. And I think it's going to go down as incredibly rewatchable. Number 5, we have Hitman. Probably another one of my biggest surprises of 2024. It goes to Hitman. Just a shockingly good film. Glenn Powell is great. I love him so much. His chemistry with his co-star Adria Arjona is top tier. Love the movie from start to finish, and the ending was perfect. Their chemistry is so palpable. Even, yes, they have very intense, steamy sexual chemistry, but just like their conversations as well. It's like, wow, these two people really connected in this movie. It's a very different movie from what I've personally seen of Richard Linklater, and I think this may be my favorite from his filmography. Concept is fun, execution's even more fun. Number 4, we got Twisters. This is the only film I went and saw twice in theaters, and it was perhaps the most fun movie I saw in 2024. Daisy Edgar-Jones is a great protagonist. Glenn Powell, we got the Glenn Powell double feature going here. He's an absolute standout in what I think is his most fun performance to date. I also become incredibly partial to it, and I'll admit that because I got to interview one of the actors from the film who I was friends with in college here on the channel, so you should go watch that interview if you haven't to go gain a little more insight on the movie. I also just have to mention, as an Oklahoman, it makes that movie even better. Now, at number 3, we have Gladiator 2. This movie was so cool. I don't care if it's historically inaccurate. I don't care whatever your complaints are. I'll listen to them because I'm a respectful, nice person, and I won't tell you this to your face. Well, I might, but I don't care. It's just a fun movie, and if you have an issue with it, you don't like fun. All the actors went in, and they put their all into their performances. They brought their A game. I don't care that Denzel Washington didn't use a traditional Roman accent. What the heck does that even mean? These dudes are talking with, like, vaguely British accents. Russell Crowe is Australian. Like, okay, yeah, Denzel talked with his normal voice. Get over it. I don't think this film was as good as the first. The action was honestly a step up, and it's a very good sequel to the first. It's a worthy sequel to a film that the first that I would say is perfect. Paul Mescal is awesome. Pedro Pascal is awesome. And perhaps the most obvious sentence ever spoken, Denzel Washington is awesome. Number 2, we have Wicked. This movie was an anomaly for me. Originally, I had it at number 8, and I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. Then it rose to number 6, and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. Then it was at number 3, and I was like, yeah, that movie's great. And now here it sits at number 2, which I feel very confident in, and I'm like, yes, this is the spot for it. It's a great film, but the reason it continued to rise is because I have not stopped thinking about this movie since I saw it. I don't know if that's thanks to all the TikToks and viral moments, whatever. I haven't stopped thinking about this movie. It's so good. The performances were over the top, but just in the perfect way. It was great. The songs were great. I'm not a big musical theater guy, so you may be like, well, those songs were great. The songs from Wicked. Yeah, I know what Defying Gravity and Popular are, but I'm not a Wicked fan. I'm not going to pretend like I am. I'm not a musical theater guy, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just prefer movies. But this film adaptation really worked for me, and I honestly think Wicked for Good might be my most anticipated movie for 2025. Now, at number 1, we have a movie that I think a lot of people forgot came out last year, Dune Part 2. The best film I watched in 2024. It came out only 3 months into the year. Perfect follow-up to what was already a legendary movie with Dune. I really hope this movie gets the proper praise that it should get. Like I said, I think its release date was its biggest flaw. The two films really function as a single entry opposed to two standalone films, which I guess could be a negative for some people, but I personally think it works to adapt what is a hefty source material. And I mean, I'm looking at the book right there. That's why I'm looking that way. It's not even that thick of a book, but it's so dense. There's so much in there. And so I think it makes sense to make it a single cohesive story across two movies. The score is amazing. The cinematography is amazing. The film is stunning. The performances are fantastic. And the final knife fight is one of my all-time favorite scenes in any movie. It's so well choreographed. The lack of music is awing at the end. And this is quite genuinely one of the greatest films I have ever seen. And that wraps up our list, the 70 2024 movies that I saw. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see how many movies I see in 2025. Right now, I am sitting at, specifically new movies that came out in 2025, I am sitting at 1, and it is January 7th, so I guess we'll see. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. See you soon. Peace.